I've got one going. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start the session this morning. Thank you for being here on time. I do realize it's hectic out there. Good to see so many people trying to get into the event and support the Gulfood activation. It's been long in the making, and without any doubt in my mind at least, very happy to see people are coming out again in numbers, volumes, supporting these events, trying to understand where the industry is headed, and last but not least, making sure that we support one another. I'd like to call up on my panel to come on stage, and we'll ask them to individually introduce themselves whilst we get the session on the go. I'll start, George, if I may, Ben, Ian, Rohin. Everyone's here, that's good.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can I... Good morning, everyone. Can I ask you to quickly introduce yourselves so people know you? But I'm sure they already know, but let's do the formalities, please.
I'm Rohin. I look after the food business for Careem in the UAE. Is that good enough?
Perfect.
Good morning, everyone. My name is George Kunnappally. I'm the managing director for Nando's. We have been in the UAE since 2002, and we are delighted to be here and part of this panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Benjamin. I'm the co-founder of Chatfood. We are a commission-free ordering system for restaurants. We work with more than 6,000 restaurants in the GCC, helping them to take back control of their online sales.
Yes, hello, my name is Ian. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called KRUSH Brands. We've recently launched a highly curated aggregator platform for ourselves called locale.ae. Which our sort of taglines is it's a platform that cares about good food, good people, and good ideas, and is very much a real equitable alternative to the third-party ecosystem.
Thanks very much, everyone, and welcome on stage. As you can see, we have some very influential people in the industry who control a lot of the topics that we are about to speak about in details, who have influence on the industry, and also trying to see where are the next 5, 10, 15 years moving forward. Before I start reading some facts and details about the industry, what I'd like to do here is highlight a couple of words that are, for me, very important in the header of the session today. Food delivery culture. Culture is big. Now, culture for this particular industry, for this particular sector of the industry we're talking about 15 years. Before 15 years, used to be Domino's with the big checkers on the rooftop. Bikes were something that we did not see coming into our industry. So culture has developed rapidly over the last 15 years, and this gives us more of a reason to be here on stage talking about culture and making sure that we define what is it going to be and how is it going to be sustainable, because clearly we understand at the minute it is a challenge to be sustainable the way it is operating in its current situation. Mutually beneficial value chain. There are multiple levels of people involved. And again, from a consumer's point of view, I think what we should be doing is defining who's involved from the minute someone picks up the phone, places an order, until that order takes place and reaches individuals' homes and addresses. Lots of implications, lots of complications, lots of costs. And again, some numbers that I'd like to read out just before we start and hand over the discussion to the gents. 2019 delivery hero within the Middle East and Turkey generated over 800 million USD top line. Now, the reason I'm stipulating these numbers are these are massive numbers on delivery only. 800 million in 2019. Half of the company's revenue was generated in the Middle East and Turkey. So it highlights the importance of our region for them as players. In 2020, across 9 months only, despite COVID, they did generate 725 million. The projections for 2021 were to exceed 1 billion. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they did not exceed that amount of money. They did also operate, despite the fact that we keep hearing stories that these entities are losing money, they did operate at an EBITDA level in both 2017 and 2018, making in the vicinity of 20 million profit margins. Healthy numbers, it's a massive convenience for all of us, for humankind globally. We just need to make sure that we have certain regulations, certain legislation, certain working ethics in order to make sure sustainability is delivered on that front for that particular sector. Without any more numbers from me, what I'd like to do is open the floor and ask my colleagues here a few questions on what exactly is this particular sector in the industry is doing. And I'm going to start with Ian, if I may. Ian, again, for me, is it a matter of technology, or is this food and beverage?
Yeah, so great intro, and so we're all about food and beverage. We are, technology, delivery, and we talk about the breadth of the value chain. I think our industry was pretty sleepy before COVID, so as bad as COVID was for a lot of people, it actually probably spurred innovation in our industry that we haven't seen in 20 years. Third-party delivery stepped in and did something for the consumer that it wanted and gave them a service that it wanted. But in my view, it's something that the industry probably should have done for itself. And I think for us, it's all about food. We're not trying. I don't believe, and what Locale is about is not about making money on delivery. We have our own professional delivery fleet who actually care about the product, and our job is done when, I think somebody said it, when you get the food and it's better or as good as when it left the restaurant. It's not done when it leaves the restaurant. And for us, we don't try and make money on delivery. I think it's very difficult. And to your point earlier, if you look at the share prices of all the third-party delivery companies now, they're all, this idea of profitability seems very elusive and carries on even during a pandemic when it was sort of a gift to them to, have that industry, those high levels of high volumes of business. So in our view, delivery is not a profit center. It's a way we use to get our product to people. Technology for us, again, is a tool, and we're not trying to make a profit on it. We have our own technology company. We have our own aggregated marketplace, but everything we do is for the customer. And it's good food matters. That's our tagline. And what we're trying to do is align our interests with our partners on our platform, highly curated, only 20 really great brands, where we're aligned on the bottom line. We're joint venture partners, and we're trying to drive the cost of delivery down and drive the cost of technology down. We want to make money on food.
Thank you. This is obviously Ian's point of view, KRUSH. What I'd like to do is pose the same question to Rohin as Careem and see how you view the previous question. Is it technology or is it food and beverage service delivery?
From Careem's point of view, we're a technology company, right? So we're a mobility company. We started off as mobility of people, moving people from one point to the other. And with that comes, I think, deep expertise in logistics, in figuring out how to get a person from one point to the other. A lot of the same principles apply when it comes to moving things from one point to the other, right? Be it our order anything service where anyone can send something that they want to anyone else, get something bought from a store from them. The same principles also apply from an operational point of view when it comes to food, when it comes to groceries, when it comes to shops. And that's how we started. So we're primarily a technology company. We leave, the deep expertise in food, preparation, menu, all of that, these guys who've done it for years, who know how to do it better. What we're trying to bring is, we have a large customer base. We've built a brand in the region over the years that customers trust. Now, how do we, use that expertise in moving things, to get the food to their customers? And that's pretty much what we're there for.
Thanks, Rohin. Again, for me, it's not working. It should be okay. For me, I did start by asking this very tricky question because for me, the intricacy here is these are two different industries altogether, trying to merge and deliver a service to consumers. And this is where we have witnessed so many elements that are very disaligned, if I may say, expensive, and in my humble opinion at least, they are not sustainable. George, your take on this question.
So Nando's is an experiential dine-in concept, and for us, any technology that we bring into our business has to be an efficiency multiplier. So when we signed up with aggregators like Careem or Deliveroo or the other players, the objective was to be able to deliver our product, which we are able to guarantee is a superior experience for dine-in, must also be a similar experience off-prem. And that's where the technology companies came in. But today what we are experiencing, which is exacerbated by the pandemic, is despite the technological advantage, I don't think there's anybody in this audience who have received a delivery order predominantly late and has wondered what happened to the technology. Because when you come into our restaurants, the service is great, the food is great, then why are we not able to provide that for off-prem? And that comes down to two primary issues. Drivers not turning up and drivers turning up late who are employed by the aggregator. But in the process, we get to take the blame, or we bear the brunt, because as far as the customer is concerned, they ordered with a Nando's or a Domino's, they did not order with the aggregator's driver. And this difficulty in trying to segregate responsibility and what is the SLA and who takes responsibility for the overall ecosystem is what we are trying to debate here. For Nando's, we can guarantee that the product that leaves our restaurant on its way to your home is an excellent product. But when it gets to your place, if it is not in excellent condition, who is responsible? Is the tech responsible or is the chef responsible?
Again, I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. I'm the consumer. Frankly, I don't really care what happens, how it is made, how it is cooked, where it's purchased, how it's delivered. My interest is I place an order with a brand and I expect that brand to deliver my food the way that I'm used to it in that particular space, under the roofs, as they have described it on their websites and so forth. And this is a tricky bit, and this is a culture gap. Culture gap is we haven't had enough time to develop that culture, define that culture, and work simultaneously on achieving what that culture should be. Ben, over to you on the same point as well. IT, technology, F&B, where is it?
Look, I think it's pretty simple. When you are hungry, there is nothing more important than that. So when you want to get food, you want the fastest way to do it. And in that case, technology plays a big role. It's probably the fastest way for you to get food delivered to you, or even when you are inside the restaurant to probably order food. So the question now is like, can we build an ecosystem? Can we build a culture where technology serves restaurants as well as consumers, offers the convenience to consumers that they want and the fast way for them to place an order, as well as it serves the merchants and the restaurants so that they can build a sustainable business. We have seen in the past that the equations when it comes to aggregators, when they control the whole market and when it's like fully in their hands, it's hard to make that equation work. And now the work that we need to do all together is how do we find the right model to do that. Jan is a great example on how you can take back control, how you can like build also your own technology and basically like offer the same level of convenience that you can find on aggregators, but ordering directly to brands. And it works. Like he has built a very successful business, sustainable business this way. The question now is that how do we help more and more brands and the whole ecosystem to find the right balance and to, of course, use aggregators for what they are good at, but at the same time offer, like, be able to offer the same level of convenience of their customers directly, so that they can, like, make the P&L and the business model work for everyone.
Forgive me, Ben. Again, you started by saying when you order food, you're hungry. Does that mean that your expectation is lower when you're hungry? Then that's one question. The second question to what you've commented on is Ian's taking control back. Was control lost when we introduced others? What happened? I'm trying to understand here.
Was control lost when?
When we included aggregators.
So, to your first questions, I don't think it has anything to see with the quality that you expect. You want quality food, and in some aspects, aggregators have played at the beginning that good roles to be able to make available higher quality food for you to get for delivery. So this, in that sense, it's a good, and I don't think your expectations get lower, but You just want to make sure that when you want that type of food, you get it fast. And that's where technology plays. When it comes to your second question about taking back control or losing back control, yes. They are putting a wall between your customers and your restaurants. It's a business model in itself, like they put themselves in between. So in a lot of cases, restaurants have lost control, and when I say control, that they have lost the ability to connect directly with their customers and to access their customers. And that's what's dangerous. Even more maybe than the commissions and what you pay, is the ability as owners not to be able to access my customers, not to be able to learn from them, not to be able to talk to them. That can be dangerous. So the whole idea is that how do you help them to take back and build back that direct connection with their customers, and that's what we are trying to do.
I couldn't agree anymore. I think it's about making sure that the relationship between brands and consumers, users, is very strong, so we can deliver on that promise, whatever that brand promise is. Ian, I'm going to go back to you if I may. So, when we start working with aggregators, what is the process? Rather than just signing an agreement, agreeing on T's and C's and so forth, what is the plan, what is the process that actually we go through in order to make sure that training is done, in order to make sure service delivery is prompt, making sure brand promise is delivered? I don't see a lot of that happening. I see the commercials override all of the discussions.
So for us, we do all of our own delivery. I actually don't know, I can't answer that in a meaningful way with first-hand information, but it is, for us, that's the very reason we do our own delivery is because, and I'll go back to your point earlier, I believe it's my responsibility to get you your food in the manner, you bought from me. Right? When you order from one of our brands, you purchase from those brands. The decisions I make about how I get those to you, that's my responsibility. I can't pawn that off to somebody else and say it's not my responsibility. And because you ordered something from one of our brands, and that's absolutely critical. And the only way that I can assure the quality of that is to fulfill that myself, and that's our solution. And I think, I also agree with Ben very much is that the direct relationship with the customer is lost. If you go on any of the aggregators, you're talking about 2,000 restaurants that that are just sort of lost on the. So to me this is a bit like Netflix, right? Content is king, right? And if you look at how much has been spent in that industry, last year they spent like $300 billion, not bringing content in, but creating their own and curating their own content. And I think choice is very important. That's what locale is. But if we have choice and selection and we can assure quality, then we'll get the eyeballs. And if we get the eyeballs, then we get the consumer. And if we have the consumer and we have a way for them technology to interact with us, and we can fulfill that promise. So there's that value chain is quite circular, and it's been disaggregated. But not in a good way. The consumer gets one thing, but they don't get connectivity with the restaurants, which I think they want. We have such strong interaction with our customers on a regular basis, and that's how you build a real brand instead of a virtual brand, in our view. But that value chain has been disaggregated. There's people taking too much. It's only so big. There's only so much value. There's people taking too much from this value chain. And as I said, delivery is an inherently expensive activity, and what I think part of the solution is to actually limit or offer alternatives to pure delivery, whether that's delayed on-demand delivery, whether that's pickup, whether that's drive-through, whether that's aggregated business. But there's ways, but if you control your whole value chain, you can actually have the opportunity to reduce your cost of delivery. If you don't, delivery is an inherently expensive activity and always will be. I don't think I answered your question, but I couldn't. The first one.
You did answer my question, and that's why we have you on the panel as well, because I'm looking at the different options, alternatives that this industry can be serviced. And fortunately or unfortunately, you have the capacity and the scope to do the A to Z and execute that brand promise the way you choose to. I'm going to jump onto George here because George doesn't have that luxury, and he uses third-party aggregators to execute that brand promise. Tell us, George.
So there are very few brands in the market which have the brand equity to say we will not be on aggregators and still customers will come searching for us. Nando's could be one of those brands, but we have chosen to go with aggregators. Now, Ian's brands, Freedom Pizza, for example, is in a unique position that people seek it out. it's not lost among the hundreds of pizza brands. But when we were to look at ethnic concepts like Indian restaurants or Chinese restaurants, how many of them can actually say, people are going to find me on my app or call my call center, when you have 300 similar restaurants offering exactly the same product on an aggregator? So that brings you back to why aggregators have become so dominant in our lifestyle choices. And when a service provider, be it an aggregator, becomes so dominant in the market, it becomes a basket case for the regulators to step in and ensure that they are at their best behavior and best practices are always maintained, and that the strong don't take the weak for granted. And in this case, the weak is the consumer and the restaurant operator. In our market, it has become a lifestyle choice that people prefer to order with Deliveroo or Talabat or Zomato or any of the other aggregators. Like all of us have them on our mobile phones. We prefer to, how many of us directly order with a restaurant? Even when you know a Pizza Hut, you still prefer to order it on Zomato or Deliveroo or Talabat. And that's something we have become accustomed to. And when a dominant part of the population becomes accustomed to something new, then that service provider has to be categorized as an essential service and be adequately regulated. In many global markets, it's being regulated. I agree we are a free market, but we become a free market truly and alive when the strong don't take advantage of the weak.
I was wondering what took you so long to talk about regulations. We're going to jump on that in a minute, but I can see Ben itching here to comment.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, George, is that aggregators are very useful when it comes to discovery. Like, you don't really know what you want to order, and you go there, and honestly, there is no better place to find out where to order from. Now, what's happening, and it's also a lot of the case, and I'm sure, like, if you all open your phone now and look at your order history with aggregators, you will look that maybe you have a few test restaurants, but most of your orders, like 80% of your orders, are coming from the same, like 4 or 5 similar restaurants. So, in fact, the discovery is interesting at the beginning, but very quickly, the same that you do on Netflix. You open Netflix, you browse around, but you always come back to the same show. When it comes to food, and even more to food, because there's a trust element to it, you come back to the same brand. So, again, it's how do you leverage aggregators for what they are good at? They expose you to a lot of new customers. They help you to get these first orders for people to test out your brands. And once this trust is established, once this connection is established, how do you reinforce that? Do you structure that with direct ordering? So I agree with you that consumers are very, very keen to convenience. So they will never, you use the example of KFC. I think it's a great example. If I want to order KFC and I have the choice between opening Deliveroo and order KFC, or going on the KFC website, asking me to download an app, have to fill up all my details, and after 10 minutes finally be able to place my order, I'm not going to do it. So the question is that how do you offer the level of convenience so that I can do the direct ordering and get rewarded for that? Again, we need to think about what is the value for me as a consumer to do that step to order from you directly. Some people care about supporting you, but it's very little. The reality is that as a consumer, I care about what's in it for me to go and order directly. I need it to be convenient, I need it to be fast, and I need to somehow like get some kind of reward or recognition that my action is supporting you and is helping you. So when you do these 3 things, like, it actually works. When you offer convenience and fast logistic and reward, we see a lot of restaurants that are managing to drive a lot of orders to their sites directly.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not like Nando's is only on the aggregators. We have our own call center. We are our own website ordering. We are launching our own app. We are on social media ordering. We are powered by Chatfood. Despite that, 90% of our orders come through aggregators.
Can I interject here? And I think the key word here is convenience. And we all are creatures of habits. The minute you get used to opening your screen, knowing exactly where to go, navigate through, and this is the biggest failure, because sadly, to go to an individual's web app, it's tailored. Whereas to go to a common one where I can find multiple, where I can find a lot of solutions, and I know it's convenient, the same price point as well. Don't forget, same price point. The easy option is what? Convenience. And this is actually this is a main key here. It's all about habits. People, once they fall into a habit, it becomes so easy to do. Guilty as charged. We all are in the room as well, I believe. Rohin, if I may, I want to jump in onto how are you influencing those habits? How are you influencing those behavioral approaches? Because to you, it doesn't really matter if the food comes from Nando's or John's or Michael's or KFC's. Yeah. It's a matter of a transaction. I make my margins on top, but I want to make sure that the convenience factor is with Careem rather than other service providers.
So there's a couple of things, right? Just also adding to what Ben said earlier, right? So even though we see customers tend to order a certain set of their orders from the same restaurants, we have our algorithms kind of push a reorder section. We don't mix it with the organic listings. We said, you've ordered from these places frequently before. Do you want the convenience of just ordering from the same restaurants? Again, that stays. What we also see is, and we have selection tiles on top that show you different types of cuisines. We have an organic listing that's tailored to each individual's ordering behaviors, right? So the entire app experience is tailored to enable discovery for those who want discovery and to enable people to quickly order what they want to order if they want to, right? So in terms of how aggregators have contributed to the industry, I think, and I've been part of this industry since before online ordering was there on the food tech space, right? And the key thing that technology always solved for was the ability, and it works both ways, for the customer to find any restaurant in the city at the convenience. Like earlier, what is the solution 10 years ago? If you see a restaurant, you order from it. If you get a flyer at your door, you order from it. You don't even know the brand exists otherwise, right? So now what technology has enabled is the discoverability of restaurants to an individual, right? Every day people are discovering new restaurants in the city on their apps. And the second one is just the ability, like Nando's we see, the very visible locations for those restaurants. But a lot of the individual restaurants don't have the luxury of being in prime real estate, right? So their restaurants would never get discovered unless your cousin said that this restaurant is really cool, you should try it out, right? So what it's enabled is an even platform at default state for all restaurants to be visible to their customers. And that's how it starts off. That's why the customers have moved to it, right? The second one is where the industry evolved from is twofold. So one is Dubai, I think, more than other countries, including India and Europe, had a culture of food delivery in certain parts of the city. There were always restaurants that you could call and they would come and deliver in a bike in Dubai. But the problem was you'd wait an hour and a half, you'd wait 2 hours, you don't know where the food is, you'd call, regardless of whether you're calling to place an order, the guy would say the person's already left, right? That used to be a default answer that became a meme that, like, you never knew where the food is, right? So what's happened with order tracking is now the customer knows, right? Like the food is on the way or the food's stuck at the restaurant. So I know when I can expect my food, right? So that anxiousness is now not there. And that's what all the aggregators have solved for. That's why over the years you've seen the model move away from restaurants doing delivery to the aggregator saying we'll do the delivery because we have some sort of assurance to the customer that the food will come on time. And I think contrary to, and this I think is the aggregator opinion versus the restaurant opinion of who takes the damage of bad experience. Like I would contend that, and if you look at any of the aggregators' social media posts on anything, you will see a number of complaints that, okay, this service is not good anymore, the food's delayed. So I think the aggregators take a severe brand hit. And what we've seen, at least over the last 1 year, with our growth over the last 1 year, is that at the end of the day, the customer experience is what matters more than anything else, right? Be it their ordering experience, be it their discovery experience, be it the experience of them getting their food on time, and the condition the food is held in, and if there are issues, how it's handled.
I'm extremely delighted to hear that. So how do we bring the tech and the F&B guys together and make these legal agreements, the processes work? Because at the moment, let's be honest, it's not working. Yeah. You make reference to individual restaurants delivering in 2 hours. It still happens today. You make reference to tracking your numbers. We don't know. You make reference to cancellations. We still don't know. It's a problem, Rohin. Yeah. We're sitting here because it is a challenge. We're sitting here to find solutions. And for me, what's very important as an outcome of our discussion is how do we unite two industries, not sectors, industries, to make sure that this moves forward in a sustainable manner.
So what we did last year, and completely agreed with what you said. These are not two separate industries that need to be at loggerheads right? It needs to be a union of expertise in food preparation and brand design, and expertise in discovering, in finding customers and giving them a really good experience through logistics, coming together to end of the day make sure the customer has a good holistic experience, right? It's two parts of the same ecosystem. So what we did last year is actually make changes to our legal systems to actually go out and say this is how we are now operating differently with restaurants, right? Last year we said we're not taking commissions anymore, right? And so there are three things that we bring, right? Like
I missed that last memo. Did it come out?
yeah.
They called them fees instead.
We call them fees, but then we're transparent about it. So there's three things we do. There's three parts of the ecosystem we do. One is discovery. The second is payment and fees. There's two parts to it. One is the payment gateway fees for what customers pay for. Second one is us transferring to the restaurants. All of that comes at a cost to us as well. And the third one is the actual cost of delivery, right? And this has been for us, like we started off as having captains pick you up from a point and drop you off in their cars. And we have that same, and we need to make sure that they had a good livelihood and they were able to be employed and have a good quality of life from that. The same holds for our captains who deliver the food as well. So we have a certain cost that we pass on directly to them. Our structure is now very transparently these three. Like our cost per delivery is the same. We charge a fixed fee for every order, which is 6.5 dirhams. It's not commission, it's very transparent, 6.5 dirhams. The rest of it is borne by the customer that they see. That whole amount goes directly to the captains. The second one is our finance charges. We incur a payment gateway fee for every payment that the customer makes online, the same you incur at the restaurant. Plus we incur a charge for every transfer that's made. We charge 2.95% of online paid orders to cover for these costs, right? And the third one is a platform fee, which is our fee for building the technology, for making sure your restaurant's discoverable, for all the innovations we make, for the technology costs, right? That doesn't change whether it's 150 dirham order or it's a 25 dirham order, right? What we're bringing is the same service, which is why we believe that the restaurant shouldn't be paying us more for a larger or penalize more for a larger ticket size. We charge a flat fee of 50 cents per order. And then we've also, just to make sure that, the restaurant is also encouraged to push more orders through us, we reduce it with volumes.
I can see a lot of restaurateurs rushing back to the restaurants, getting the menus, saying, let's revise the pricing, let's have a fixed fee for everything, let's add something for development, let's add something for the chefs, let's add something for... It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm not going to pick on you only, I'm going to pick on the others, but just bear with me a second. What happened? Why does the Careems of this world want to be involved in menu design? Why does Careem not focus on presentation of the riders, promptness of the riders, fees, training on the road? Isn't that the expectation from the consumers as brand extension? Brand extension is important because ultimately no one's calling Careem to say, Careem, bring me a burger. They're saying, Nando, send me a pizza, or Michael, send me a KFC, whatever it is, through that vehicle. So why are we focusing on stuff that isn't really irrelevant? I want the unity to be on where it matters for the consumer's win, not for our wins.
So none of our fees have anything to do with menu design, right? It's payment, it's the delivery, and it's a flat fee for being on the platform to cover our technology costs, right? And it's from 50 cents down to 30 cents, right? And we have to run our servers and have engineers and product as well, right?
So does the rest of the world.
Yes, which is why we're not charging commission. We're
let me
charging
be the
a
bearer of
very,
the bad
very
news.
fixed fee. But if payment fees go to the banks, the delivery fee go to the captains, right? So are you saying that a 50-cent fee is very high to pay as the industry?
Look, what I'm saying
we're
is
moving away from saying 15% comes to us.
Transparency is very important. Transparency. So we can call them fees, we can call them percentages, ultimately, as a consumer, forget restaurant owners, forget operators, as a consumer, I'm sitting at home, I expect something from Nando's in this fashion, in this packaging, in this mode of transport, with a certain price tag, period. So transparency needs to happen between service providers and brand owners, brand operators. I think this is where I'm seeing it. How are you dealing with all of this?
Well, so the word you use, which I think is important, is transparency. There is, of course, a cost of delivery. It's an expensive service, right? There's some for me as a consumer, I don't like to see, you see all these service charges and there's a delivery fee and all that. Just tell me what it costs, right? I want to know what it costs, and I want to know the extra over or what it would cost over if I picked it up myself as a consumer. And I'm happy to pay that amount if it's a fair amount. And in fact, I want to pay that amount, but I want a differentiation product. So if I walk into a restaurant and I pay the same price as I pay for a delivery, which has an inherently higher cost of, there's an additional service there, I'd like to pay that fee, but I'd like to pay only that fee. And one of the things that I see as a real issue, and there could be a reform, is that I think this is one of the only parts of the world where in your agreements you don't allow the restaurateurs to actually alter the pricing, right? Which makes perfect sense. Like in the UK, if you go to a Domino's, if you go pick up, it's like half the price. And in fact, 50% of Domino's orders in the UK are actually pickup, because the consumer gets to make that choice and have that value add. And again, it goes back to transparency. Tell me what I'm paying for as a customer. Tell me what I'm paying for as a merchant. I understand there's a cost of delivery. And I also want you to be genuine about, you talk about paying your drivers, but you're paying them, they're not your drivers. They're third-party drivers. And, you're trying to drive down your costs at the expense of others, right? I want to pay for that driver. I want to make sure he or she has been compensated properly, but let me make that choice and let me pay for that additional service. It is an additional service, nobody denies that, but I want to know what it is and I want to pay for it.
Couldn't agree anymore. Ben, you're not getting off lightly. I'm going to come back to you in a second. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is, because obviously Ian's last comment is directly leading into regulations, but before we do that, what I'd like to see in the audience is, who would like to see regulations taking place? If I can see a show of hands so we know where you are. This is less than 5%, guys. Come on, hands up. Okay, we've gone up to 5.5. Very well. Regulations for me, before I again pass the baton to my colleagues here, regulations are all well and good. We see them in the US in certain states. We see them in the US in courtrooms today as well. We see them in our neighbors in Doha, Qatar. They have certain caps on regulations as well. Nonetheless, for me, regulations is not about the fees. It's about all the print that the average punter, the average consumer doesn't actually see, all the hidden charges. Again, every time you get a contract from these service providers, there's so many entries, and by the time you start adding that 30 cents and the 50 cents and the 80 cents and so forth, it adds up. It all adds up. It's expensive, and it keeps ever changing. So regulations, George, I'm going to start with you because I know this is a bee in your bonnet.
So what the primary area of divergence is that both of us are in a marriage where we are not rewarded for the same performance. One party is being rewarded for success and the other party is being rewarded for failures. Or let me put it differently. All restaurant operators in this room are valued on profit and loss. And then we have the aggregators who are valued on data, number of transactions. So you have aggregators who are new in the business, who are still raising capital, coming after restaurants and saying, give me all your transactions, I'll give it to you at 10%, 5%, no commissions, free. And then they reach a point where they run out of money and they have to go public, and then they are pressured with quarterly earnings and profit and loss, and then you start cutting costs and raising your commissions. So when we look at it as Nando's, we already know what's the cost of doing a delivery if it was to be done by our own drivers. There's a call center cost, there's telecommunications cost, there's packaging cost, there's driver cost and permits. And so if that is 20% on a 100 dirham order, if an expert like Careem or any of the other aggregators were to come and say, look, I'll take this headache off you, but it's going to cost you 21%. We'd happily give it away because now I can focus on the dining business, which is my core competence with high margins. Now what is happening is, I don't know what's my own cost, and I keep blaming the aggregator saying, but you're charging more. Well, if the aggregator is charging you 35%, and you know your own cost of delivering it is only 25%, why aren't you delivering it yourselves? Why aren't you building capacity? Then it comes back to the ethnic cuisines where you are on the discovery phase, you don't have a unique selling proposition, you are just another Chinese restaurant. Well, then you're stuck. You have no choice but to pay the premium and be on the aggregator and spend more on the aggregator to be visible. But if you are an established brand and the aggregator is charging you more than your own cost of delivering that order, you should not be on the aggregator. or you should renegotiate your rates.
Regulations. That was my question. Where is it?
Now, regulations is, now I saw most of you are not willing to, don't want regulations, despite probably knowing the fact that regulations could make you pay less for that order.
If I can say something about the regulations, like look at what's happening in other markets, in other countries, and I think New York is a great example about this. They have capped the commissions to 15%. What happened is that, as you just explained, it costs money, and it costs a lot of money to offer a great experience and to offer all that convenience, that fast delivery. With 15%, if I am Uber Eats, I cannot make it work. It doesn't make sense. So what are they doing, Uber Eats in New York, is that they are passing over what they cannot charge to the restaurants to the consumers. In the end, it starts to become much more expensive to order for delivery. And so as a consumer, I order less. Does it mean that I go more into your restaurants? Not necessarily. You don't see an overlap between like, I'm not ordering for delivery, so I'm going to the restaurant. I'm just not ordering, period. So regulation, in my opinions, makes everybody lose. It's not offering what consumer wants. It doesn't add more business to the merchant. So the road for regulation, it's hard to make it really work.
I disagree slightly with that. So I agree with you. I think fee cap is the stupidest blunt instrument and probably unconstitutional in the U.S. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't address the problem at all. So that's the wrong type of regulation. But that doesn't mean all regulation is wrong. The only regulation that we should have is transparency, clarity, and to George's point, I think it's very clear. I don't think anyone in this room is worried about paying for delivery. But I just want to know what that is. I don't want to have a different name for it every time, and I want to know that the person who is doing that delivery is being properly looked after. They're safe. They're properly compensated. They're not being incentivized to drive dangerously, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what I want to know as a consumer, but I just want transparency on that. And as a merchant, I want to know that my fees aren't going to change every two weeks. There's a new fee, and I was timing how long you were talking about your non-commission based fees. I mean, you were talking for 2 minutes about all of these different fees. Why not just do one fee or one, these are designed, in my view, to confuse people, not to provide clarity, because let's be honest, you are not profitable, and you're trying to claw back profitability from people who can't afford to give it to you.
So let me talk about that, right? So the reason there are 3 different fees is because there are 3 different services. You can choose, like Ian, you have a specialized arm that looks after the logistics. You don't need Careem to do it because you do it well yourself. So why would you pay a fixed fee if you're not even taking that service? Right? So this allows you to not pick a service and pay for the other things, which is a per order fee. And then we're not charged a fixed fee by the payment gateways or the banks either. It's a percentage that gets passed on to you. Fixed fees is what is our revenue at the end of the day.
Look, I'm not asking you to explain your fee structure. Yeah. I'm just saying that it's a very complex fee structure, and it changes. That's my point.
So the only way it can come down to a number is a commission, right? Which then the aggregators have done over the years, and it's grown over the years as the costs have gone up, and we've landed at the 25, 30, 35%, right? So the entire reason we said, okay, let's break it down, is for the transparency. Like, the customer
ask you then, so you guys charge more you'll charge McDonald's 10 or 11%, and you'll charge the coolest brands in the world 35%. The small guys, the small operators that are doing really cool, innovative things. I mean, that's what Locale is for, because we're bringing on those brands, we're actually partnering with them because you guys won't take care of them, right? In fact, you're penalizing them, which actually, everybody in this room gets less choice because of that, because we can't grow these businesses. But the notion that, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, but it's not transparent either. You can't have 10 sets of fees and say this is transparent and clear.
We have 3 fees, and transparency is, by definition, letting you know what the fees are for, right? And I fail to understand where there is a lack of transparency.
Clearly, my job is done because I got them going, so I'm happy. On that note, regulations, and I did ask regulations early in the piece because I think when we talk regulations, everyone thinks fees. Regulation is not about fees. There's a human resources component. There is a safety component. There's a delivery component. There is commercial component. There's a lot of regulations, and this is where we expect to see regulations. How are we treating these people? There was social media campaigns recently about these bike riders not allowed to sit in certain places, not allowed to enter venues in the heat, water. these are regulations that are merely human approaches. And this is what we need to see. The fees are all debatable. Transparency is key. Regulation is on the processes rather than numbers only, in my humble opinion. And I'd like to think my colleagues on the panel agree. And last but not least is, how do we think unity rather than divide? And how do we think that consumer is king? Because ultimately, without the consumer, none of us will have this problem.
I think there's also, again, about regulation. It's not about fees for me. It's about transparency, clarity, and making and letting the responsibility lie where it belongs, right? Because these are separate services. But the other thing that's missing, and we talked about this earlier, is connectivity with the customer. And so there's no reason in my mind why aggregators should withhold information from the customers. So if they're ordering from me or from you, they're ordering Nando's, right? So why shouldn't Nando's have access to that customer?
Because there is a misalignment between what they need and what you need. Like, what they want is that it costs a lot of money to acquire one customer, right? So to get someone to download your app is very expensive. So for them, it's like they invest there and they want to make sure that you keep reordering from that app. George's interest is maybe to acquire one customers, and maybe he's very happy if this guy order for delivery, but he might also want to make sure that maybe this guy also comes inside his restaurants and come for dining. So his interest is maybe different from the interest from the aggregator. So this is why transparency is very hard, I believe, in the case of the aggregators, because they have an agenda that is different from the operator agenda.
Totally agree. Two different objectives. And this is why I started the entire session by saying technology versus food and beverage. So one has building a platform for business brands, and one's collecting data to say, how can I flog this eventually and float and shares and market price and so forth. Different agendas, which we understand. But nonetheless, how do we merge so the consumers benefit? Because ultimately, why should an aggregator keep the data? Because without the brands, they wouldn't have the data. Without the brands, they wouldn't be delivering anything. So the reality says, or logic in my humble opinion says, data is owners of the actual brand who deliver that service. Relationship should sit with brands. Communication should sit with brands rather than a service delivery who is merely executing a service.
But okay, there are a couple of points about data also, right? So, that's where again regulation also kicks in, right? When somebody signs up, right, as a brand, as an aggregator, we have a promise to keep their data safe, right? We invest a lot, and it's not the cost, right, in keeping their data safe. The regulations across the globe in other markets about what data is shared.
He's going to hide behind GDPR.
Right, that holds.
Sorry, I didn't
right.
He's going to hide behind GDPR.
But it exists. Regulation is regulation, right? And also see those, and there's two parts.
I'm glad you sat next to the stairs. Because I think there's a tendency here to say, let's be honest.
There's also
regulations should be applied on all fronts, not when it suits and when it doesn't suit.
So let me cover two other things, right? So one is, why do you need the data? Is because right now there is, you lose money, it's not in the restaurant's interest to get more orders through the aggregators, right? It boils down to that the current way of working isn't healthy for the restaurants, right? Now, if that's fixed, there's no reason for you to want the customer data, you're happy to partner, right? So I think that's the core issue we need to fix.
No, I disagree. We
You
want
want
ownership.
how do you learn about your customers? How do you improve your business if you don't have access to the data and to your
when
customers?
they deliver our order, or if they pass on an order to me, I don't know the name of the customer, I don't know his mobile number or email address. All I know is DIFC building number 8, office number 712, and I walk in and there are 300 people sitting there. I have to call out and say, order number 6368, who's that? Because you won't share the name of the guest or the mobile number.
And then when the guest complains, who bears the blunt of this? Because you didn't have the...
brand.
Yes.
So you don't know the name or the number of the customer who walks into your restaurant either. 9 times out of 10.
No, but we're dealing with them, so we have that ultimate control of
Sure.
transparency, communication.
Sure, but you still don't get that data, right? So my question is, it isn't necessarily different online.
Do not agree, because if you have, there are multiple options of collecting dine-in customer data in every restaurant, whether it is through Wi-Fi or social media interaction or loyalty programs or app or on QR code ordering. you have the option. Now, if the customer wants to withhold that information, they are fully entitled to it. But a delivery customer has already shared that information. When I place an order, I want you to know my name, I want you to know my mobile number, I want you to have my physical address.
George,
I also did, first of all, I'm sorry that you're here to answer for all the sins of the industry.
Should have been a one-on-one.
So I'm sorry about that. We should take him out after, do something with him. But on the data privacy issue, I mean, I guess the question I have, because I hear that a lot, can I ask you a question? Do you employ your drivers directly, or you do it through an agency?
We do it through an agency.
Through an agency, okay. And so you're giving all the customers' data to somebody outside of, you're giving that data to somebody who doesn't work for you.
But they don't record it either, right? The data get on the Careem platform, on the Careem devices. The moment the delivery is made, they don't have access to that.
But you're sending somebody who doesn't work for you to somebody's home who is inherently going to open that door, and who knows what could happen.
Yeah, but we still have, that's true of restaurants as well, right? The same third parties are used by all the restaurants as well. That's another industry.
And I'm just saying, I'm
Sure,
referencing the privacy issue, because you actually are sharing the data. So
but we still have the tracking. We still, it's not given in bulk, right, to anyone. They don't have access to it beyond giving the order and then moving out. It's true of our rides business, of all the business we do, right? Because it is interaction with people. The captains, whether it's a limousine, whether it's has to call the customer. Most of them are masked. It's there, right? Even when you call a captain, there's an option. Do you want to call them anonymously? Do you want to call them directly? Right? The customer has that choice, and that's where it is.
Ben, you're very quiet. You're concerning me. Where is Chatfood in all of this? Particularly when it comes to privacy regulations and dealing with all of these chapters.
Look, it's simple. As we said, like about earlier, like it's about convenience. So consumers will go where the convenience is. Our job is to offer the technology to restaurants to offer the same level of convenience when they order directly than when they go on aggregators. We believe that it's very important for restaurants to be able to find the right balance, to use the aggregators for what they are good at. It's discovery. But when you have done a good job as a restaurant to create a bit of loyalty, and like someone order like 2-3 times, why am I going to pay like commissions for that customers? I want to make sure that I can connect to that customers directly and delight it. So our job is to give them the tool to access those customers directly. George, you were mentioning a point earlier that's very important about. We always think about access to consumers like on the online world. But in fact, there is a huge pool of consumers that are already accessible in the restaurants. Also, the question is that as a restaurant, to find this mutually beneficial value, is that all those consumers that come into my restaurants, how do I connect with them as well? How do I use technology to connect with them so that I can make sure that when they want to order for delivery, they come to me directly and they don't go through the aggregator. So again, Chatfood job is to empower those businesses to access technology so that they can connect with their customers and sell directly and find the right balance. I do believe that in the case of George and many other restaurants, if they could use aggregators in the right way, which is like as a discovery tool, as a marketing tool to bring in more people through their doors, and then like find the way to sell to those people once they've created loyalty, like it would create a mutually beneficial value. They would see the value on one side and they will not be concerned too much about the commission and the data. The problem about the commission is that when 100% of your business is this way, and when you have no other options to sell, it becomes an issue.
I agree with that. I mean, I think what Chatfood has done a great job of is offering that alternative, that direct alternative. And, I think most people, you see the surveys, 4 to 5 people would rather order direct from a restaurant, if they're given a choice, but they actually have to be able to do that in a way that is easy to do and equally, an equal experience. And I think our industry's been a bit slow to react to that, and I think technology will become more ubiquitous, like Chatfood, like others, but it doesn't. It actually strains the relationship more. I don't think it helps the relationship. I think it strains the relationship more because platforms, the third-party platforms, are going to make less money, and they're going to become more aggressive to try and drive a bottom line.
Very much so. We started the session by talking about the age of the cycle of delivery, and 15 years ago, none of us would have had these discussions at this length. And I think what's very transparent today, or what's very obvious today, is how do we mature this industry in line with the speed of technology, because technology is taken over and there's a lot of questions, obligations that are kind of imposed upon us without us having any control. So I think the whole purpose of today's exercise is to make sure that industries align in order to make sure we have that transparency and that delivery and that service component. Last question that Benjamin actually brought to the equation is a lot of these businesses now haven't realized that service delivery is a component that should support the business, not drive a business. So you can't open a business that is fully reliable on delivery only, and we're seeing that a lot. And we're seeing, obviously, these guys, rather than running a business, they're running a delivery business only, and that's a choice that people can make. I have no issues with that. Nonetheless, obviously, margins are different because of the cost implications. So how are we dealing with that, and how are you advising people to balance that equation in order to make sure that the business is supported by delivery rather than built on delivery?
It's actually a very interesting point. So we have started as Chatfood also to digitize the ordering and payment process inside restaurants. So to make it easy for you to order, or to at the moment, or when you come to the bill moment, you don't have to raise your hand and you can pay easily. This way we can have an omni-channel view and see like these customers, is he also a delivery customers, and share that with the restaurants. It's very interesting to see that for the ones who have digitized their full operations, 7 out of 10 dining customers are also delivery customers. So in a lot of people's mind and restaurant owners' mind, there is the delivery customers and there is the dining customers. In fact, there is one customer that will sometimes order for delivery and sometimes come for dining. So again, the whole idea is that how, as an operator, how as a merchant, do I have the choice to decide what I want to do? Do I want to push my delivery business? Do I want to push my dining business?
For a business owner to understand who the consumer is, I think it's very powerful. And how do we utilize it? So artificial intelligence and all of these methods that we can actually measure the business, understand where the business is driven by and who it's driven by, is very powerful, because this will eliminate a lot of questions. And then the minute that you have direct connectivity to the brand, you know the loyalty is to the brand. Because if they come in to consume with you and they order online with you, loyalty is to the brand. They like what you do. They like the food you give. They like the brand philosophy. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep coming back.
And the best marketing tool of a restaurant is word of mouth. So if you cannot create that connections, you cannot trigger that word of mouth. And as restaurants don't have like millions of dirhams of marketing budget, so if they want to be able to grow their business, they need to trigger this most important thing, which is word of mouth. That only comes when you offer a nice experience and you can create that connections. We are talking about the small ones, the small guys, the passionate owners. This is like their main tool, is to create that experience that me as a consumer will go and talk about it to my friend and so on. So again, the question is how technology empowers, helps businesses to improve that experience. And I do believe that when you do this, you can find a right model and be happy to work with the aggregators, because they will help you to what you need, and then you can access technology to also build your business in the right way.
Couldn't agree anymore. Before we move on to the dark kitchens and cloud kitchens, is there any questions from the floor that we can start answering some questions before we delve deep? Wonderful. Can we get some mics out to the...
Cheers. Hey guys, can everyone hear me? So, coming from a consumer, one frustration that I'm seeing and feeling a lot is what happens before the food is actually picked up. So if I want to order a taxi on Careem, I know where the taxi is, and then when I'm in it, I know where I'm going. If I deliver a Careem box, I know the guy's coming to collect my package, and I know where the package is going. When I order food, now I don't use Careem for food, I actually use Deliveroo more than any. And what I'm noticing is that I would say 8 out of 10 times recently when I order, it says, either your driver is waiting at the restaurant, which I don't think is true, because most of the time I know those restaurants and I call them and they say, actually, your food's ready, there's just no drivers around. The other one is the delivery time gets pushed, maybe 10, 20 minutes. I then want to speak to the restaurant or raise a complaint, and there's obviously an algorithm in the app that then says, your order's on time. Because they've changed the time, but it's not actually, and I'm just a frustrated consumer. But then I know the industry, so I know actually it's BS from the aggregator. But naive consumers will fall out with a restaurant and potentially won't order from them again. So we've spoke about this holistic view and transparency. I believe there's a gap there, and I don't know if Careem do this, but I know Deliveroo don't, there is a gap where the consumer needs to know where the driver is before the delivery. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because as a consumer, that's something that I'm feeling very, very often at the moment. I'm sure others are. So did Careem offer that service?
Yeah. So when you place an order on Careem, you can see there's 2 stages to that, right? So you can see when we assign a captain, right? So, and those 2 are on us. Until the captain gets to the restaurant, it's our responsibility. And that's
Do I see where he is though?
Yes. So you can see how long it takes for us to identify a captain who will be picking your order, and you can see where he is coming from and how far from the restaurant he is and his route to the restaurant. So on Careem, at least you get the entire journey. So from when you place the order, the next step is us finding a captain to pick your order. The second is the captain getting to the restaurant. The third is the time spent at the restaurant, and then you see the route back as well. And what we try and do is we optimize for 2 things. So one is we try and work with the restaurants to make sure the captains don't end up waiting at the restaurant too much. But again, there are some restaurants where the food preparation time is 5 minutes. Some restaurants take 20 minutes because the food is of that nature. So what we try and do is send the captain closer to when we expect the food to be prepared, so that they're not waiting at the restaurant for too long. And then we also make sure that we're working on our algorithms to make sure that the captain isn't being sent from like 5 kilometers away to the restaurant, so that time is on average our time to the restaurant is under 4 minutes.
Right.
So
does that mean then that your app is optimized, or is your app optimized to show restaurants that have drivers that are closest to
no.
the location? Because that's another thing that I've seen. Like sometimes you'll go on, and I know different restaurants pay different prices to get higher up the chain, but I have heard rumors as well that aggregators use an algorithm to show restaurants higher up the page if there are more drivers in that area. Is that true?
So we don't do that.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's true of the other guys, but I think at least what we try and do is make sure there are enough captains always around, right? So at least our belief is, at the end of the day, you will continue ordering from Careem if you have a good experience ordering through Careem, right? Which means you should get your order on time, the captain should be easily available, all of those kind of things. So we make sure there are captains across.
What I find interesting, like in this discussion, is that the consumer is being drawn into this part of the service, right? And ultimately, don't you just care that the food is great, it arrived without headache? And for me, great technology is technology that actually doesn't involve you in this process. Great technology you don't notice, right? And ultimately, as consumers, we want great service, great product, and we want a headache-free, right? Ordering food or delivery is one of the most stressful, activities that most people can do. I don't think you should be worried about those things as a consumer personally, and I find it interesting that becomes part of the psyche of the ordering, right? And what we're trying to do is remove all that from you. That's not your problem. That's my problem. And
clearly, we've failed to do so. Otherwise, these questions wouldn't be surfaced. Thank you for the question. I saw some more hands on front.
I'm a 33-year restaurateur, and I take issue with the fact that you say I don't know my customers. When they walk through the front door, I will make sure that me and my staff know them. There's about 10 of them in here, and I can tell you how many children they all have. I'll cut this short. Ben, you have 6,000 or 5,000 restaurants that have your trust. When will you start a major aggregator to take over from Zeliverbat?
That's $1 million question.
Like Ian has.
Yeah. Again, you have people that are trying to solve one issue, and you have others that are trying to solve another issue. Our job is to build technology to empower restaurants to own their customer relationship and to own their profit. So we are not in the business of trying to help on the discovery. We are in the business of trying to help George to capture the rest and create loyalty for his customers so that he can sell in a better way. So I don't think we have a way to go into aggregators and try to build a commission-free aggregators, because it costs a lot of money to do that. our job is to make sure that they can find the right balance and they don't have the only option is to sell through aggregators. We want to make sure that they have also the options to access easy technology to sell directly.
Easy technology, functioning technology as well, if I may, is key. And again, the discussion with Ben we had earlier is about if we do have understanding of who the audience is, are they ordering, are they dining in, then it becomes a lot easier for operators to say, I understand my business mix. Then they need to make a decision how much of third-party aggregators is important to them or not. This chap here has decided that they're not important in his life. They can't do a delivery promise from A to Z. He's taken that in-house. He can. Others can't. The discovery guys can't. They choose not to. So we need to find alternatives that make AI work fundamentally proficiently, and two, make sure captivation of the data is with the right ownership. That's key for me.
Yeah, and to your point, you said like when someone enters into your restaurants, you used to know them, right? It's how also you can use technologies to empower your staff to get the information that they need so that they can offer a better experience to the customer. Just a few data points, but we focus a lot about the delivery, and it's a growing market. It's a very important market. But if you just look at the GCC, it's a $45 billion market. $5 billion is delivery, and $40 billion is dining. So there is a huge opportunity for operators to upgrade their experience, digitize their experience in store, collect that data, so that they can build a better also delivery business and find the right balance. Again, it's not like delivery on one side and dining on the other side, but how do you create ecosystem and an omni-channel view that helps you to build a better business overall as a restaurant?
Thank you, Ben.
There's
one
sorry,
more question.
Can I just add a bit to that? First of all, I did not mean that you don't know your customers. The fact is that you don't need to know their phone number and their address to address them, right? So then I think what we need to do as an industry is address the core need of why you need the data, right? Is it, part of it is understanding which menu items sell the most, who's a loyal customer, how can you then serve them better, right? So if that as an industry we're failing at, that's something we should address, we should fix, we should develop tools for, right? So what I'm saying is it's not, the core issue isn't the phone number and the transparency of the data, it's that maybe as aggregators we need to be doing more to help you build loyalty with your customers, to give them a better experience, to know who a new customer is, who is a repeat customer, who's continuously ordering from you, and cater to them better. Am I fair in saying that?
Yes, you are. I'd also like to point out that from our perspective, from my perspective personally, Careem have been one of the most transparent in the opinion of smaller restaurateurs that I deal with. The devil, as far as we're concerned, is not on the stage today.
I feel a lot better now that you've said that. So, next question.
Hello everyone. Great conversation. My name is Max. I'm the co-founder of a company, a young startup called Tekeya, based out of Egypt. We're all about sustainability and fighting food waste. So bringing purpose back to food items that were left and sold at the end of the day. We have around now 500 recurring customers. And my question is actually directed to Ian. So Ian, when you said you have to control your whole value chain, ideally, right? We're actually dependent, obviously, on aggregators in the Egyptian market at the moment. So 66% of our orders are delivery, and that's growing. Obviously, we do not have the budgets to really own our fleet. We've looked into it, but it's actually a separate business model with high risk. What would you advise to us, or young startups, actually?
So I didn't hear what you're selling. I missed the first part.
So it's a marketplace model. So what we're doing is we're connecting food providers with consumers. You have to think of local brands in Egypt that have food that's left and sold at the end of the day. Through our application, they're selling it at a flat 50% discount, and we're growing fast. So
you're selling them at a 50% discount?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, my advice would be to understand the full value chain and who you're serving, right? Because you've got your restaurants on one side, you've got the cost of delivery, which is just a pure cost in our view, right? And it's a capability. And you've got the your economic interests as well. I honestly, like from what I'm hearing, I'm not sure how you can make that work economically if restaurants are at a 50% discount, and and then to charge delivery, because the cost of delivery is pretty much the same whether you have one delivery driver or 1,000 delivery drivers. So the cost of delivery is what it is. My advice would be you have to build that into your business model, and it has to fit within your business model, whether a third party does it or you do it yourself. But what would be important to me is to capture the data at the very least of who your customers are, whether that's at the door or through a different app like a Chatfood or something like that. But the cost of that delivery is what it is, and if you have to rely on third parties, maybe try and negotiate deals where you actually get some of that customer data.
Any more questions from the audience? Wonderful. We have a hand right here, if we could.
Afternoon,
Right
guys.
Yep.
Sean
ahead.
from Repeat here, merchant-centric aggregator of loyalty for dine-in and delivery. I have a question with regards to the data. So, as a customer and as a business, there's, at loggerheads in terms of how much do you share, and so that restaurants can be in touch with the customer, but at the same time, so that isn't abused, right? For example, if I'm a customer and I order from 7 brands, and those restaurants have my number and email, I often find that I'm getting SMSs, I'm getting emails from multiple businesses. So my question is, as an aggregator, how do you give the right amount of information, but it still have a situation where there is regulation on the restaurant side as to what they can do with that? That's for the whole panel to kind of go at.
You've just hit the nail on the head. This is, again, when I spoke about regulations, this is exactly what I'm making reference to. I think this is, where is the control, who's accountable, particularly when you have multiple layers involved, multiple parties executing various levels of services. Not everybody privy to the same amount of information as well, if I may add. So it becomes very complex, and this is where regulation for me needs to stop hiding behind certain headers and abbreviations and say, what does it actually mean? Because we have a vacuum there, and as you rightly said, every now and then you get the odd SMS saying, I've never used this brand, how did they, and who are they, and why are they reaching out to me?
I mean, I think it's a very valid point, but I mean, you basically have to enter into a contract with the consumer, right? And it has to run right through to all parts of the value chain that are going to touch that data and for what reason. So you need to be legally contracted, I believe, to go straight through. But presumably you're also giving the data to drivers so which is, even in my mind, you can imagine what could go wrong with a delivery driver, that's at somebody's door. But I think there's what I think the larger question is, and what I find confusing, is that the big third-party aggregators are after all this data, yet really there's no ethical way to use it. To answer your question, to respond to your comment, what are you using the data for? And the data should be used to serve the customer.
Other than valuations, if I may add.
Well, no, but that's exactly the point. But I'm not sure why we're rewarding that for valuation when, if you look at all the regulation that's taking place in Europe, that data should be essentially rendered useless. Apple now, when you sign in with Apple, you have the option to send a token instead of your data. For me, the data isn't for me. The data is for the customer. The data is for me to serve the customer. It's the customer's data, and we are actually putting in place right now privacy features that will allow all customers to delete their data, which sounds crazy, but try and delete yourself from any platform anywhere in the world today. But we want the customer, we'll show the customer every way we're connected to them digitally and allow them to delete. It's their data, it's not our data. And I think we all have to move to that idea that the data that we are giving to people is to buy a pizza, not to be spammed by everybody. So I think it's a broader issue of security and privacy.
I agree, sorry to interject here, with Benjamin actually mentioning that you need to give a reward. So on the customer side, we do give a reward for getting that data from them, because to get something you normally have to give something. And on the business side, we give merchants the access to a dashboard which tells them how often their customers come back, and then understanding that so that they can make smarter business decisions with regards to frequency, spending, etc. So other than that, I still get questions on, I want their phone number and email. And my question is, okay, but what do you want to do with that? And that's the problem, is that some want it for genuinely, like maybe Ian, to have build a stronger relationship with their customers, but some may have slightly more nefarious intentions, which is to remove them from that platform onto another channel, which at the same time, again, Benjamin mentioned there's a cost to that. I think, Rohin mentioned there's a cost to that. So it's how to find a balance of people having the right intentions on the business front and the restaurant side, that making it work, because there's always going to be bad actors in each business transaction. It's just those small numbers are sometimes causing issues for businesses like Careem to make it work, right? And give more information and trust people more with that information.
On that front, this is where technology needs to get better, needs to help. So first, for the data part, if you only sell through aggregators, you don't get access to data, so you cannot even do anything there. So once you sell directly, you can get access to the data. And what we see from the business who do marketing campaigns, that if you educate them and if you give them access to the tool to know how to use the data properly, they do it. The challenge now is that there is no real good tool that helps you to segment your audience and send relevant message at the right time that makes sense for your customers. So obviously I want to, for instance, I have 10,000 SMS. I don't know really who are those people, so I just send a blast and I spam everybody. But once they start to be able to access that data, segment their audience, for instance, someone who has loyalty points and that are about to expire, to receive a message to tell me like, hey, you have 7 days to use your loyalty points. We see from the data that our merchants are using that it has a very positive impact. It drives sales up. People are not upset about it. So again, this is where technology needs to get better, to give access to the merchants so that they can use data in the right way. I don't know any merchants who will want to spam customers on purpose. If they do it, it's because there is a limitation on the data. It's the same like when you go inside the restaurants, we don't want to spam people to order, but we are training the staff to offer a nice experience. There is a work to do on the online world to be able to upgrade this experience at the same level.
Thanks very much, Ben. Amazing topic, and as you have witnessed, when we started an hour and a half ago, I thought to myself, how are we going to fill this hour and a half? A lot of unanswered questions. It's deep and meaningful topic. The takeaway for me, it's a clean slate in a way that we can still shape, nurture, develop, and work as a unity together to make sure the industry is sustainable, because I repeat, it's not sustainable as we are operating now. So we need to find solutions fast, beneficial for all stakeholders, consumers, investors, and so forth. And last but not least, it's making sure that we take it to the next level, because the technology part is moving a lot faster than we are. So we need to align. On this note, I'd like to bring this session to a closure. Thank you for taking the heavy load. A special round of hands for Rohin, please. And of course for the rest of my panel, thank you very much for staying with us.